going to introduce. Good evening. I'm Paul Knapp, former ABC News correspondent, and welcome to the United South County Democratic Club. Tonight, we're honored to have two distinguished Democrats to address our club. Before I introduce our speakers, I'd like to just read a little portion of an email I received from the Palm Beach Democratic Chairperson, Terry Rizzo. 49 weeks from now, voters all over the state will be heading to the polls to determine who the governor is going to be for the next 4 years, elect the senator, and elect Democrats up and down the ballot. Terry writes, "We're going to need your help and the help of every Democrat you know to send Ron DeSantis packing, replace Marco Rubio, and win elections up and down the ballot. Elections matter, and turnout's the difference between victory and defeat." The United South County Democratic Club asks what Democrat can defeat DeSantis. Tonight, we're honored to have with us one of the three Democratic candidates for governor. Charlie Crist currently serves in Congress in the House of Representatives in Florida's 13th District. He serves on the Appropriations Committee. He serves as Florida's 44th governor. He served as Florida's 44th governor from 2007 to 2011 as a Republican. He switched his party affiliation to independent in 2010 and became a Democrat in 2012. He is Charlie Crist. Charlie, you're up.
Well, thank you so much. It's such a pleasure to be with you all this evening in the South County Democratic Club. Dave, if you're on, God bless you, my friend. This guy is a tremendous, let me brag on him, Dave Aronberg. My pleasure. A tremendous public servant. We served together in Tallahassee. Great state attorney. Just a man that has an incredibly bright future ahead of him. I'm honored to be able to share this time with him this evening. Having said that, I'm running against Ron DeSantis. And I think you all know why. He's a disaster. You know, whether you're looking at how he has mishandled the pandemic, how he wants to change Roe versus Wade in the style that Texas has done, or how he treats voters with utter disrespect. So I want to start with the pandemic first, and I guess a cautionary note, if you will. We have this new variant that's been discovered in the last week. We have to be very careful. We have to be very prudent, and we have to be very smart. So if you've been relaxed about wearing a mask lately, I would encourage you to make sure to wear a mask. I would encourage you, if you're not vaccinated, which I'm sure I'm preaching to the choir, you all are, that's great. Encourage others that may not be to do so. And if they haven't gotten their booster yet, or you may not have, please do so. We don't know how strong this new variant is going to be. We do know that it's very transmissible. Hopefully it won't be strong at all. Apparently, according to news accounts, the first few cases that have been reported initially in South Africa, the symptoms were not bad. But evidently those reports came from younger people who had contracted the new variant. So we're still not sure. And most scientists agree, including Dr. Fauci, it's going to be a couple weeks until we know really the magnitude and the depth of this. Said that. Back to DeSantis. I think somebody on mute. I'm getting feedback a little bit. Okay. That sounds better. No, I'm getting feedback.
Let me look. See if that works.
Okay, is that better?
I think so. Yes.
Okay, thank you, sir. I appreciate it very much. So let's look at how DeSantis handled the virus initially. As soon as we were able to get vaccines last December and January, the governor decided to initiate what he called pop-ups. In other words, he would have certain locations around the state that he selected with the assistance and guidance of others throughout the state, Republican Party members, actually, about where he would give out and go to places and give out, 3,000 or so vaccines personally. So one of the first places he chose was a place you're probably familiar with in South Florida called Ocean Reef. Ocean Reef is a luxurious, very nice community in Key Largo, the very northern part of the Florida Keys. It is mostly white. It is mostly Republican. It is mostly affluent. So he goes there. He gives out 3,000 or so vaccines. People are very happy. And before and after that happened, he gets a lot of contributions from people there. One fellow gave him almost $1 million contribution from Ocean Reef. Next, he decides to go to Lakewood Ranch. That's near where I live in Tampa Bay. It's between Sarasota and Bradenton on the West Coast. It is a community that is mostly white, mostly Republican, mostly affluent. This is where the governor likes to go and hang out and save lives. So he goes there with another 3,000 vaccines, gives them out, and before and after he left, accumulated a lot of contributions. It was like a fundraiser. Only what the people who came got were vaccines so they could stay alive. And what the governor got, from a lot of them, not all, were significant contributions. Another place he decides to go is the villages. You all know about the villages. It's mostly white. It's mostly Republican. And it's relatively affluent. Not as affluent as the other two, but nevertheless. So he goes there, does the same shtick, and before and after collects contributions. This is one of the most corrupt things I've ever heard of as a public servant in my life. We're dealing with life and death, and this governor of our state decides to go to Republican communities, prioritize them, affluent Republican communities who can help him in his re-election campaign, and they're mostly white communities. So they're probably not being very many minorities, probably not many Democrats. That's the kind of governor we have. And I'm just calling it straight out because it needs to be. And it pains me as a Floridian that we have somebody like DeSantis as our leader, as our governor. It pains me so much and breaks my heart so much that I'm leaving what probably is a safe congressional seat to run for governor. But I know we need to take the governor's mansion back from this guy. Because the flip side of Ocean Reef, the flip side of Lakewood Ranch, the flip side of the villages are minority communities that are not getting the vaccine early, that the governor has decided to ignore, that he doesn't want to go to. Now, this kind of behavior is untenable, and if not criminal. And I just can't imagine having a leader of our state do these kinds of things. But, you know, he keeps going. And so I read in today's Tampa Bay Times, after they were talking about, you know, where Omicron was coming from, the consequences of it that may be, but they said the most important thing is we don't know the full effects of it. So the smartest, most common sense thing for any place in America, any place in the world, frankly, is to encourage the wearing of masks, make sure you encourage people to get vaccinated. If they haven't yet gotten a booster, to get a booster. Then they quote our governor. And he says, we're not going to do anything different in Florida. We're not going to give up our freedom. We don't have to use masks. We don't have to go get vaccinated. We're going to maintain our freedom in the Sunshine State. That's what we're dealing with. Now, how does this affect everyday Floridians? Let's boil it down. We've had about 3.6 million Floridians contract COVID. We've had about almost 62,000 now that have died from COVID. And to give that some perspective, that's more than the number of Americans, not just Floridians, Americans whose lives were lost in the Vietnam War. From our one state of Florida, with this virus, with his lack of leadership. It's as I said, it's unconscionable. It's untenable. But that's what we're dealing with. And when you have somebody who's more focused on their political future and trying to set himself up with the hard right of the Republican Party for the presidential nomination in 2024, rather than the well-being of our fellow Floridians in 2021 and 2022, that's what you get. He is blind with ambition, blind to the thought that he's taking his eye off the ball of our fellow Floridians in the worst healthcare disaster we've ever experienced. I mean, I can't imagine our last Democratic governor, Lawton Chiles, God rest his soul, if we were facing a Cat 5 hurricane coming to South Florida, then he would leave and go, gallivanting all over the country, raising money and giving political speeches instead of being focused on Florida in a crisis. But that's exactly what Governor DeSantis has been doing. For months, he's been doing that. And we've had this virus for months. So what's he do? He goes to New Jersey, he goes to Aspen, Colorado, he goes to San Diego, he goes to Indianapolis, he goes to Texas, he goes to the Texas border, spends almost $2 million of our money doing it, instead of being here, overseeing and managing a crisis as a responsible public servant. We deserve better. You deserve better. All of Florida deserves better. And I know in my heart and my soul that most Floridians are better than that they don't admire it. I know some cheer him on, just as some cheer on Donald Trump. And it's the same group of people. It really is. And I think a lot of this is laid at the feet of the former president. He emboldened people to be crude, to be arrogant, to be dismissive, to make fun of disabled people, to make fun of Hispanics, and Mexicans. I mean, what that former president, thank God former, has brought us is baby Trump. And his name is Ron DeSantis. Or as I like to call him, Wrong DeSantis. You put a W in front of the R, a G after the N, and Ron becomes wrong. Because he is wrong. He's wrong on treating the pandemic. He's wrong on, recommending people get vaccinated. He's wrong on saying that people, should wear masks. He should say that. He should advocate it every day, everywhere he goes. He's wrong on a woman's right to choose. Let's talk about that for a minute. So Texas, as most of us know, I'm sure all of you know, because you're the most informed of voters, passed this law that basically gets rid of Roe versus Wade. The Supreme Court heard it today. I haven't heard the arguments. Probably Dave has heard a lot about it. We'll be able to update us later. But, having said that, Governor DeSantis wants to bring that law, or a very similar one, to Florida. It's already been drafted. The Florida legislature has their session beginning in January this year. Now, next month, it'll be dropped formally, I'm sure, during that period of time. And the governor's already said that he supports this kind of law, restricting what Roe versus Wade gave, which was a woman's right to choose. This is the kind of governor we're dealing with. He doesn't want you to vote either. Remember, he signed the bill, the voting bill. I'll call it the anti-voting bill. I'll call it the anti-democracy bill. I'll call it the voting suppression bill, because that's what it was. And the irony of that, think about this. Think back to just over a year ago, right after our election in Florida, and the governor's saying what a great, amazing, wonderful election we had in Florida. No problems, no issues. Yet they rush into the session and they decide, we have to pass a bill to make sure that we clean up all the problems that we had, which they said we hadn't had. I mean, it's weird. It's weird unless you realize they want to try to keep us from voting. So they passed a bill that makes it harder to mail in ballots. Again, ironically, something that Republicans really stressed, even before Democrats, until President Obama really pushed it. And we got better at it than them. So now they don't want it anymore. So it makes it harder to have mail-in ballots. My 89-year-old father loves to use mail-in ballots. My 87-year-old mother, shoot, I do too. I mean, especially during a pandemic. Not only is it convenient, it's probably safety. The other thing put in that bill, among many others, but the one of them that bothers me the most, instead of having drop boxes in all different parts of different communities throughout the state of Florida, they're going to have less of them. What does that mean? As a consequence, less of those drop boxes to put your ballot in are going to be in minority parts of our state. What's the effect of that? Probably less Democrats in minority parts of Florida will be voting. And that's the intent. Now, the good news on that front, the NAACP, the League of Women Voters, are suing to get that law thrown out on a constitutional basis. That what they're doing in essence is unconstitutional, which I agree with. I think it is unconstitutional. So hopefully that will be thrown out before our next elections in 2022. But let me conclude by saying this. Florida deserves to have public servants like Dave Aronberg, who care about Florida and Florida's people every single day. You know, a great president once said, you know, our government should be of the people, by the people, and for the people. That's how Dave Aronberg comports himself. That's how I strive to comport myself, to put people above politics. This governor DeSantis, puts himself above the people of Florida. He is more concerned about Iowa voters than he is about people in Florida. And he proves it every day. He proved it again today by what he said about wearing masks and getting vaccines. And, you know, we'll put, you know, quote unquote, freedom first. Yeah, and I would finish that sentence. Freedom first instead of saving lives, instead of saving kids in school. And you know, issuing, you know, this executive order about essentially not wearing masks in schools, not protecting our school teachers, you know, not giving a woman a right to choose, not allowing all voters to have the equal opportunity to vote in our state. The list goes on and on and on, my friends. You know all about it better than me. I mean, you know, I'm talking to the most informed of the informed voters in Florida. And so let me conclude by thanking you for being that, because it's you that are going to make the difference in all of these elections in 2022. And it has to be all up and down the ballot. In 2022, we get to turn Florida blue. This is our opportunity. As far as the governor's mansion, we haven't had it for over 2 decades. We're due. In fact, I would argue we're overdue. This is our time. This is our moment. We have the opportunity to seize this. We have an opponent that is a very clear contrast from what any Democrat would present against Ron DeSantis. It's good versus evil. It's really pretty simple. So thank you for being active. Thank you for getting the word out. Thank you for your gracious invitation to be with you and spend some time this evening. Happy Hanukkah, happy holidays, Merry Christmas to each and every one of you. God bless you, my fellow Florida Democrats. Thank you.
Thank you, Charlie. Do you have time for a question or two?
Sure.
Okay. I'm going to ask the first question and see if anybody else has it. President Biden's Build Back Better plan. What's your assessment? Is he get through what's going to happen with us, and how important is it to the American people?
Number one, I think it's extremely important. I really do, and I do think it will get them through. I think even, you know, Joe Manchin and others that may have some reservations about it will realize in their states it's going to make a huge difference to so many people. Just like the infrastructure bill creates so many jobs, improve our infrastructure. You know, thank God that one's already done. And frankly, I think President Biden's been given an unfair shake by the press. So let me touch on that for a minute. Afghanistan, obviously the withdrawal could have been much better. But when you look back at it now, he made absolutely the right decision to finally do it. A lot of presidents could have done it and didn't. The last president talked about it. We need to get out of these endless wars. Never did a thing about it. Who did? Joe Biden did. He knew it was going to be difficult. It's a messy thing. And it was a messy thing. But ultimately, at the end of the day, it was the right thing. How can we continue to tell generation after generation after generation of Americans that they need to be over there, losing their lives over this? So God bless the president for biting the bullet and doing the right thing. Next thing he did, he got the infrastructure bill passed. It took months and months. It was agonizing, but he was willing to do the work. He was willing to listen to people. He was willing to be a public servant, reach across the aisle, do whatever it takes to get it done because he knows America needs it. I mean, he's Amtrak Joe, so he understands we need new highways, we need new rail, we need new bridges, we need new seaports, improve our airports. So I think the president hasn't gotten enough credit. I think that he will, and I do really believe that Build Back Better will pass. It won't be in the same form that we already passed in the House. I'm proud we did that. We got a great speaker, as you know. She's amazing. But I do believe the Senate will come around to it as well. And I think it'll be great for Florida, great for America, great for our economy, create millions of more jobs. So many, dealing with clean energy. It's a wonderful piece of legislation.
Thank you, Charlie. Any other questions from the audience here before we let Charlie go?
Paul, if you look in the chat box, we have a question from Barry Adesnik. Do you see it?
I don't see it at the moment. Let me see if I can find it, but I can't find it on here.
Okay, I'll read it to you.
Go ahead, you read it.
Yeah, this is from Barry Adesnik.
Yes, sir. Sure.
Okay, how can we compete with the Republican money coming in and all the press coverage the Republicans are receiving?
Well, we're getting some pretty good press coverage. If he's talking about the governor's race specifically, the incumbent governor is in office and gets covered every day. So you can't do anything about that. That is what it is. But, to 50 or 55% of Floridians that get to see what he's covered about don't like what he's covered about. I'm sure none of you do. I'm certain I don't. So I don't think the press coverage he's getting is good. I think it's derogatory and accurate. When he's talking about taking away a woman's right to choose, making it harder to vote, being anti-democracy, and being anti-life-saving when it comes to the virus, that's bad publicity. Now, there are people who give him a lot of money. Why? Why would somebody do that? Well, they don't want their taxes changed. They don't want their businesses, to have to make adjustments in order to avoid people dying that work there. Think about that. Some people put money ahead of life. One of them's our governor. And the root of all evil is what? Money. So don't be afraid of the money. We got people. We got people. And they are eager and ready to vote in this election. I am confident of the people of Florida. And we probably won't have as much money as he does, but I guarantee you this, we're going to have enough. And if you want to give some, go to charliecrist.com. I would appreciate it, because that's how you win these things. Each and every one of us participating, telling our friends to vote, making sure if there are people we may know who aren't registered yet, that they need to register. I'm going to shut up. I'm going to let Dave take the floor. I've talked too long. God bless you all. Have a great holiday. And please give a warm reception to the best state attorney in the United States of America, Dave Aronberg.
Charlie, thank you very much. Appreciate it.
God bless you all. Have a good night.
As you've heard, we have another speaker tonight. He's frequently seen as a guest on the Morning Joe show. He was first elected state attorney for the 15th Judicial Circuit in 2012. He was re-elected in 2016 and 2020 without opposition. And it's my pleasure now to introduce State Attorney Dave Aronberg. Dave, you're up. Where is he?
Dave? Looking for him.
Dave, you there?
Just saw him.
Can you see him on your screen?
I'm looking. Let's see. Okay, let's see. Yeah, Dave?
Is he muted?
Let me just see. His video is not on, but he's listed as here. So perhaps he stepped away for a second. Why don't we just wait and see for a minute?
Until Dave comes, I just make a mention or two. We hope to have two other Democrats running for governor, Agriculture Commissioner Nikki Fried and Miami State Attorney Senator Annette Taddeo, as well as Representative Val Demings, who's running against Marco Rubio. We hope to have them in the near future. We also hope to be able to go live in person, of course, depending on the variant, but it would be nice if we could get to the South County Convention Center and be in person and see some of these candidates and be able to shake their hands or at least fist bump them or etc. on there. So any more word, Ken, from Dave?
I just sent him a note. Dave, can you start your video? I know he's here. He checked in. I got him on the screen. Let's just...
Meanwhile, ask Ed Saul. Ed, any thoughts of when we might be able to go live in the South County Convention Center? Unmute yourself. Unmute. We can't hear you. You have to unmute. Okay.
I was hoping to do something in January, February, but the way the variant has now just come up, we have to put things on hold, take a step back and review the situation.
Yeah,
I was
unfortunate.
this morning, and they're fully cognizant of that, and everybody was anxious to go forward. And I did go to the Alliance meeting, and they had a meager turnout, unfortunately. People are quite frightened and frustrated.
Until we know.
Okay, you can start your video as soon as you're ready. We're waiting for you, Dave. Thank you. Okay, that was Dave. He had to take care of his dog. I guess he had to walk.
Okay.
The dog lovers will understand that one, okay? He said he'll be on in a minute, so keep going, Ed.
Ed's finished, but do we have any?
Look at that. There's the man.
Okay.
Well, hey, thank you. It's good to see you. This is the reason why I was down. Oh, there's. So.
Direct from Morning Joe, David Aronberg. Hi, Dave.
Hey, Paul, good to be here. Ken, thank you. Sorry, yes, I knew you'd call me as soon as I went down to take out my dog.
Okay.
She's a good girl, though, so I'm going to give her a little treat. So hello, everyone, and thank you for having me. It's hopefully we can be together in person one day soon. This is always such an important club. But I wanted to talk to you about a few things. First of all, I thought Charlie Crist was great. I thought he did an excellent job explaining why we need a new governor. We all know it's a question of getting that message out to the rest of Florida. So there are a lot of topics we could talk about. And I thought that I would touch upon a few legal issues and give you some, like a preview of what I would say on Morning Joe or CNN if I was asked about these issues. I think, number one, on the Roe versus Wade question, you saw today that there was a momentous oral argument before the U.S. Supreme Court. The most important case in decades before the Supreme Court. And the woman who did the oral argument for the Women's Reproductive Rights Center, that was a woman named Julie Rickleman. And I'm proud to say that she and I lived in the same dorm, second year of college. She was always very bright, hardworking, and she did an outstanding job today, made us all proud. Unfortunately, I don't know how much of it's going to matter because you have a 6-3 conservative majority on the court, and they have their own minds made up, I think, about Roe versus Wade, even though when they all went for confirmation before the U.S. Senate, they all said, oh, I never thought about it. We respect precedent. Well, that's, I think, a bunch of bunk because these folks, they're supposed to be apolitical, but the court is often political. And the one person who seems to care about the legitimacy of the court moving forward is Chief Justice Roberts. He does not want people to see this court as political, but he can't control the more radical members of the court. He can't control Clarence Thomas or Alito or Kavanaugh or the newest Justice Amy Coney Barrett, who replaced Ruth Bader Ginsburg. So this all comes back to the fact that elections have consequences. There were numerous people out there who voted for Trump over Hillary Clinton because what? Hillary's emails, because they just didn't like Hillary, because they believed that Trump wouldn't touch. Roe versus Wade was never going to change. Well, here it is. We're on the cusp of having Roe versus Wade overturned, or at the very least, the Casey opinion overturned, which is the opinion that said that states cannot impose an undue burden on the right to choose. And so I'm anticipating that if Roe versus Wade is not overturned, it will be drastically curtailed, and you'll see states empowered to enact new restrictions on abortions. And that will happen here in Florida because Ron DeSantis cares about one thing and one thing only, and that is becoming president. And he sees his path as inheriting the MAGA base, the Donald Trump base. That motivates everything he does. That motivates his decisions on coronavirus. That's why he continues to sell anti-Dr. Fauci merch on his website. That's why he ordered 1 million doses of the drug hydroxychloroquine when Trump touted it as a miracle cure. That's why he had Dr. Scott Atlas give us COVID policy, and now has this guy from California who's our new Surgeon General. It's all about galvanizing this right-wing base that is anti-science, that is anti-facts, that is anti-democracy. but it's his path to becoming president. And that's where it is. Oh, by the way, about that 1 million doses of hydroxychloroquine that DeSantis ordered for the state of Florida, it turns out that no hospital wanted it. And so now the state of Florida is left with 1 million doses of a drug that no hospital wants, that doesn't have any impact on any benefit for COVID. But the next time we have a malaria outbreak in our state, we'll be ready. So, as far as other matters, I want to give you some reason for hope on this. If the Supreme Court does what I think it will do, and that will drastically reduce or overturn Roe versus Wade and the Casey opinion, what that means is abortion is not outlawed. It means it goes back to the states. This could be the thing that awakes a sleeping lion. This could be the thing that finally wakes people up to the fact that when you vote for someone like Ron DeSantis and others who are steadfast against abortion rights, steadfast against women's reproductive rights, they have the power to do something about it. Now, there are so many people out there who support Roe versus Wade. In fact, large majorities do, but they don't vote on it because they think it's not an issue. Well, it becomes an issue if this is overturned. I've always believed that Republicans, the elected officials at least, did not really want Roe versus Wade overturned. They pretended to motivate their base, but they knew that if it was overturned, then abortion becomes a critical issue in every election. In every state governor's election, every state senate election, every state house election. All of a sudden, abortion's on the table. And so that could be one thing that could help turn Florida blue. So maybe I'm just an optimist, but I think that when this court acts the way I think it will act, it will awake a sleeping lion. Now, another issue, as I look around to make sure, find out where my dog is. Cookie? All right. She may be... So maybe out in the hallway. But let me tell you about another issue. The January 6th committee, they issued subpoenas to Steve Bannon and many others. Bannon decided he was just going to ignore the subpoenas. Well, a subpoena is not voluntary. A subpoena means you've got to show up. He didn't even show up. It's one thing to do as Jeffrey Clark did, to say, hey, I'm going to show up, but I'm going to decline to answer questions because I believe that there's executive privilege or attorney-client privilege at play here. Bannon didn't even do that. In addition, Bannon has the weakest claim to executive privilege. Bannon did not work for the White House over January 6th. Bannon left the White House in 2017. Remember, he was fired. So he has no claim to executive privilege. That's why it was easy to decide to refer it to the Department of Justice, and it was easy to make a decision to seek an indictment for contempt of Congress. And that's what's happened. That's low-hanging fruit. That shouldn't have been a surprise to anyone. He has no defense. He even explained that it was attorney-client privilege why he wasn't testifying. Attorney-client privilege? He's not even a lawyer. So he has no defense. This should not be a hard case. And if he's found guilty at trial of contempt of Congress, it's a misdemeanor, and there's 2 counts of it. So he would get up to 2 years in jail. But here's the best part. There's actually a mandatory minimum for this count. This is a different kind of misdemeanor. There are very few misdemeanors that I'm aware of that have a mandatory minimum. So the mandatory minimum is 1 month in jail. So with 2 counts, that means he would spend at minimum 2 months in jail and a maximum 2 years. So if you wonder why Mark Meadows all of a sudden decided he was going to comply with the subpoenas, he's going to negotiate, well, he saw that the Department of Justice has indicted Bannon, and he did not want to be next. The next question is whether Jeffrey Clark is next. He is the Trump sycophant who was high up in the Department of Justice, and it was part of the coup where Trump tried to push aside Jeffrey Rosen and install Jeffrey Clark, who then was going to try to overturn the election in various states using the power of the Department of Justice. This guy knows where some of the bodies are buried. It's important that he testify. We'll see if he does. He is claiming executive privilege and attorney-client privilege, and now the January 6th committee is about to refer him to the Department of Justice for potential prosecution. It has to go through a full vote of the House, and then it's up to Merrick Garland again to prosecute Jeffrey Clark. But these guys aren't messing around. The reason why they're not messing around is time's a wasting. The whole strategy for guys like Jeffrey Clark, for Mark Meadows, for Steve Bannon, is to wait it out. they believe that the Republicans will win Congress in the midterms. And so if they could wait and push this off until after November, then the Republicans will do away with the January 6th committee and they won't have to comply with anything. But here's the thing. Because it's now in the hands of the Department of Justice, it does not matter if Republicans win Congress in 2022. Steve Bannon's case will continue. Once this gets indicted, once it gets referred to the DOJ and they issue an indictment, they get a grand jury to indict someone, then it doesn't matter whether Republicans get control of Congress and then take away the subpoena. The crime has already been committed. It is now in the hands of prosecutors to prosecute the case. So that's some good news. And then finally, if you want to ask me, I'll leave it to you to give you my thoughts on the Ahmaud Arbery and Kyle Rittenhouse verdicts. I'm happy to do so. I'm going to be on a TV network tonight called News Nation. It's the one that became popular in the Gabby Petito case. Local reporter Brian Ensign is one of their star reporters. It used to be WGN, the Superstation from Chicago. Now they've rebranded themselves as New Nation. So I'll be on tonight to talk about the parents of the Michigan killer, the killer and the school shooter, who apparently bought him the guns. And he's an underage kid, and whether or not they have liability under the law. And so that's the topic for tonight. So with that, I want to say thank you for having me. I love this job as state attorney, and I love being able to do things like this and to be able to talk on Morning Joe before work starts or on CNN after work is over. It's doing what I love to do, which is talk about the legal issues of the day and try to break it down to people who are not lawyers, to break down all the legalese and jargon people use, and to make the criminal justice system more transparent. Because I think that's part of the problem with our criminal justice system, is that there's too much secrecy. There's not enough transparency. I do think cameras should be allowed in all courtrooms. I don't like how we have these major trials right now, like the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, like the Elizabeth Holmes trial, like the Jussie Smollett trial, and there are no cameras in any of them. I think more transparency, more openness is always a good thing. And with that, I'll stop and take any questions you have.
Thank you. We really appreciate your performance here and seeing you on TV. Dave, what is the legislature up to right now with this special session?
Well, I am a recovering politician. I used to be a state senator for 8 years, and the legislature, the special session is over. The one that they did to try to help DeSantis become president, that was the special session they did to enact unconstitutional items that violate the supremacy clause of the Constitution, to try to overturn federal law when it comes to vaccine mandates and other things. I mean, that was all show. That was no go, and it cost taxpayers thousands, if not millions of dollars as a PR stunt for this governor. As far as what they're doing now, the session is starting up again, and brace yourselves, the big issue will be reapportionment. The Republicans will try to draw the lines to benefit the Republican Party, but because voters passed a constitutional amendment 10 years ago to have fair districts, they are limited. They are they can't do what they would normally have done. So they're going to do what they're going to do within the construct of those amendments, and they'll still be able to gerrymander the seats. The one good news about that is that they've gerrymandered so much already that it's not like they can turn Florida into more of a Republican state. They've already done that with their districts. It's not like they have much more room to gerrymander any further. So they'll do some, and they will succeed in creating more red districts. But it's not going to be, in my opinion, a major difference than what we have now.
Doesn't Florida get one more congressional seat?
Yes, and we should have had two. The population growth in Florida was large, but Donald Trump tried to tell people not to fill out the census forms or to distrust the forms. He didn't like that. So in Florida, with a high immigrant population, you didn't have as many census forms being returned, and now as a result, we have one less seat than we should have had. We should have had two. On the other hand, if we had two extra seats, that would have been two extra seats for the Republicans. They would have created 2 Republican seats. So they were, as they say in Shakespeare, they were hoist by their own petard.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions out there? Dave, you're running for re-election? Your term is...
I am not. I was reelected in 2020 without opposition, and I decided that the best way to run is without an opponent. I was elected state attorney in 2012 and then reelected in 2016 and then again in 2020. And very fortunate because I do love this job. And to be reelected twice without opposition was really a humbling experience. And I'm very grateful to the people of Palm Beach County for that.
So when does your term expire?
2024. One of the great things about this job is there's no term limit either. It's a constitutional officer position. And another great thing about this job is that the governor is not my boss. The attorney general, not my boss. The people, you are my bosses. And so it's the best job.
For those who may not be able to see you later on this other station, can you give us a little synopsis of your opinion regarding these the trials that we just took place and what the consequences might be?
Well, I do post. I will not be on tonight to talk about Arbery or Rittenhouse, but I do post my clips on my Instagram page. Please check it out at Dave Aronberg, and you can see. Also, I'm on TikTok, but only with interview videos. I don't do any dancing on TikTok. I think that's what the kids do. But as far as my take on the Arbery Rittenhouse case, there were 2 very different cases, and you had 2 very different results. I know a lot of people thought they were a lot alike because you had two sets of vigilantes, and one got away with it and the others did not, but they were very different. And here's why. There are 2 major reasons. First, the video in the Arbery case was so powerful, so shocking, that even the right-wing governor, Brian Kemp of Georgia, said it was a shocking video, and he demanded that state investigators get involved. This was after the local prosecutors, my counterparts there, let these 3 defendants walk free for 73 days. There were conflicts of interest, and they recused themselves, but not before one of them allegedly told police not to make an arrest. That DA is now being prosecuted. The second DA recused himself because he had a conflict of interest, but not before he wrote a letter to police saying don't make an arrest, even after he was recusing himself. That's when he wrote this letter, which is crazy. I mean, once you recuse yourself, once you have a conflict of interest, you stay out of the case. You don't write letters to the next DA and say, hey, don't file charges. That is a no-no. But he has not been charged. He's being investigated. There was a third DA, and then they had a 4th prosecutor. So, but the video was so powerful. Contrast that to the video in the Rittenhouse case, where it wasn't as clear. It was somewhat ambiguous. That's why the jurors looked at it and was like, we can't make a decision. I mean, the clearest one is the one on the second and third shootings. The second shooting was a guy named Huber who hit Rittenhouse with a skateboard and then was shot to death. I thought that was disproportionate force, but the jury, found otherwise. The third person was a guy named Grosskreutz who had a gun, and he was the worst witness. That was one reason why, and that's the second reason. That's the second difference in this case than the Arbery case, because the key witness in the Rittenhouse case was this guy, Gage Grosskreutz. He approached Rittenhouse with a gun. Rittenhouse shot him and blew off his bicep. Well, he took the stand and he was asked, hey, when Rittenhouse shot you, did you have your gun up? He said, yes. I was pointing my gun at him. Oh! They should never have charged for that shooting. They were never going to get a conviction on the Grosskreutz shooting. And when you overcharge, you lose credibility in the eyes of the jurors. The strongest charge they had was the first one, where there was no video of the shooting. Well, actually, there was video of the shooting. It was the one with Rosenbaum, who threw a plastic bag at Rittenhouse. That one, I thought, deserved a conviction, because one guy had a plastic bag, the other guy had a AR-15. But the jury saw it differently. One of the problems is this. In the Rittenhouse case, the judge dropped the gun charge, the one that said that an underage person cannot possess an AR-15. That was, to me, the easiest one for prosecutors, and that's a misdemeanor punishable by up to 9 months in jail. But because there is a law in Wisconsin that said that if the barrel of the AR-15 is long enough, it's a hunting rifle and it's legal, the judge dismissed that charge. But dismissing that charge had lasting ramifications on the whole case. Here's why. First, it eliminated the one charge that I thought would have resulted in a conviction and jail time for Rittenhouse for sure. And secondly, and more importantly, if you want to establish that Rittenhouse was the initial aggressor, that he provoked it, and thus he was not entitled to self-defense, you have to show that he was committing an unlawful act. It's not enough provocation that he just showed up to a state that he didn't live in to guard a business he wasn't asked to guard, to lie about being a medic. None of that is unlawful. What is unlawful is possessing an AR-15 when you're underage. And when they got rid of that count, that meant that he was not going to be seen as the initial aggressor. That meant that he gets full benefit of self-defense. And so the jury decided that the prosecutors couldn't prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. Just one more thought on that. The prosecutors, at the last minute, when that charge was dismissed, had to scramble and to find something else that was an unlawful act. And what they came up with was Rittenhouse pointed his AR-15 at Zeminski, another guy who was there with Rosenbaum. When he pointed that gun at Zeminski, that was aggravated assault with a deadly weapon. That's the criminal act. That's what the prosecutors went with. But remember, the gun wasn't pointed at Rosenbaum, so it was a bootstrap argument, and I think it confused jurors. But also, the video showing Rittenhouse pointing his AR-15 at Zeminski was unclear. It wasn't a great video. It was from a drone. And unlike the Arbery video, it was not unambiguous. And as a result, prosecutors have to meet this high burden, and they lost the case. And so that's the difference between the Rittenhouse case and the Arbery case. The Arbery case, that prosecutor had the one defendant on the stand, Travis McMichael, and eviscerated him. Unlike the Rittenhouse case, where the key witness was terrible, and Rittenhouse actually did fairly well on the stand. The prosecutor did not lay much of a glove on him. The prosecutor in the Arbery case destroyed Travis McMichael, exposed his lies, the fact that he said he made a citizen's arrest, but he never told police he was making a citizen's arrest. He never even told Arbery he was making a citizen's arrest. And when they called 911, what did they complain about? Well, there was a black male running through the neighborhood. And that was it. That the only crime that they saw or believed that Ahmaud Arbery was committing was jogging while black, which is not a crime at all.
Thank you, Dave. Rittenhouse, meanwhile, has become a hero to Fox and the right in showing up in Mar-a-Lago with Trump. And what can we do about these guns? Nothing's happened. We have another school shootings, and nothing seems to ever occur. It's a crime.
This is another example of elections having consequences. You know, the NRA has a stranglehold on the Republican Party, and nothing's going to get passed unless you elect people who are not beholden to the NRA. And that's it. Now, the Democrats have control of the House, the Senate, and the White House. But because of the filibuster rule, you're not going to see any change on gun laws. And so until you change the filibuster, you won't see progress when it comes to gun laws. You won't see progress when it comes to voting rights or just about any major thing that doesn't involve spending money. You could get things through like an infrastructure package. That can be done through reconciliation. But things that don't involve money are things that die because they don't have 60 votes. And that's why I support filibuster reform.
Any other questions for Dave? Ken, do you have anything? Ken Summers?
You know, Dave, we've been listening to, a lot of us here have been in this game trying to get Democrats elected to statewide offices for quite a few cycles now. I myself was involved, with Charlie in his first go around as a Democrat. And most of us has faced administration. Any thoughts to the troops to get them enthusiastic?
I think there are reasons to be enthusiastic for 2022. I'm going to give you a few. I do think that if and when the Supreme Court takes away rights that every young woman in this country, every woman born after 1973 has expected, has counted on, and all of a sudden the Supreme Court's going to take it away, I think that will be a shock to the system that could have major ramifications in elections. And that is something huge that could really be a seismic shift. We'll see. Maybe I'm too optimistic, but I really believe that's a wake-up call. Number two, I think there's a path to victory for the Democratic nominee for governor in 2022. Aside from Roe versus Wade being an issue, I think that the fact that Donald Trump has grown to resent Ron DeSantis could be something that could help the Democrat win. Right now, you see what's happening in Georgia, where Trump has gone after Brian Kemp. That was his acolyte. But because Kemp wouldn't help him steal the election in Georgia, he is undermining Kemp. He even told people at a rally to maybe vote for Stacey Abrams. And if you don't think that matters, the Republican Party is really a party of one. Trump controls most of the voters. If Trump sends out one message that says DeSantis used to be my friend, but now he thinks he's bigger than I am or whatever. He's not kissing the ring or he's not true MAGA. I mean, then it's anyone's ballgame. And I think that the Democrat should win that. I mean, if he does that. So people would think, would he actually do that? He's already doing it in Georgia. He's doing it right now in Georgia. And we all know that he hates DeSantis because DeSantis is running for president and hasn't asked Trump for permission. So there's room for optimism too. And finally, room for optimism, Val Demings. Val Demings, I think, is the last, she is a superstar. She's last new, fresh-faced superstar that we have in Florida. And she is someone who could really excite people when it gets close to the election. She's going against Marco Rubio, who, again, is not in great graces with Donald Trump. I mean, it's not like Ron DeSantis, but Trump ran against Rubio, called him Little Marco. It's something that could come back as it gets close to the election. Donald Trump is not loyal to the Republican Party. He's loyal to Donald Trump. And so we will see next November. So for those who think that it's already a done deal, we're going to lose Congress, we're going to get wiped out everywhere, a lot can happen between now and then. It's an eternity in politics. So don't give up hope. If we lose our base, if people like us are demoralized, then we have no hope. But we have to remember there's a lot of time, there's a lot of reasons to be optimistic about next year's election.
Dave, thank you. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your appearance and thank everybody for their attendance. We hope to let you know when the next meeting is and have candidates, including Val Demings, here. And we hope that when this variant is destroyed or at least attacked, that we can meet again in person. And Dave, thank you again. We look forward to your future appearances with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Okay. Happy holidays to everybody.
Thank you.
Take care now. Okay.